Hi, sorry, my signal dropped off again. I am back. So, hello everyone. Are you back? Is the question. I have tea. That's a good thing. You can indicate if you're there.
We are here.
Hey, great. Okay, thanks everyone. So, yes. So, Stella is currently doing her master's and she just vanished. She think I was going to ask her a question. She's doing her master's in disaster management, and so I just and I think in doing that, she's thinking more and more about how permaculture might be a very useful way of thinking of how we deal with sudden changes and how we rebuild from as a result of whatever of things that might go wrong. Yeah, anyway, let's get back to the presentation. And we had looked at the sort of the food going bioregional organization thing. And I think there's 9 areas to look at. I'm not going to chomp through all of them, and but it would be, I think, as a group, very interesting to look at all of those. And I obviously, for the model to work, it's trying to come up with an integrated response. So it's saying, look at all 9 areas, and then with each one, break it down into more and more detail. And start with the immediate things like, what are we going to eat? Where's our shelter? How are we going to sustain ourselves? And health, and on and so forth. The 9th one, and this is the context that actually I wanted us to focus on: future trends and threats, because we're talking about climate change. It's a threat right now, but as a future trend, it's gonna get worse. It's going to intensify. It might not hit you. It's sporadic. It's regional. But imagine this scatter pattern approach of events. We're going to have to see those patterns and learn from them. We're going to have to treat each event as a learning experience and bring that into our models, bring that into our response. So I've given you this, this model as well. We were told about how, in each step of our emergency response sort of cycle, we're learning and improving and being more prepared, having a more effective response, which allows us to recover and to mitigate the impacts of that, and allows us actually to learn from that, so that we are more prepared. And you could say, okay, let's get to this. So I have started following a podcast series online at the moment, put together by Roger Hallam. Roger is the primary climate change activist in the United Kingdom, as in terms of he set in motion Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil, very powerful campaigns. And he says there's 2 views that are completely not useful and incorrect. And that one is to say, I don't believe in climate change, it's not happening, to go into the denial phase, because that's clearly not true. And the other thing that is completely useless and equally as bad is to say, it's too bad, it's too late, we're all doomed, we'll give in. The truth is, we don't know that. And what we also know is there's degrees of bad, and there's degrees of preparedness, there's degrees of response. So actually, as permaculture designers, we are seeing the patterns, and we're building strategies that fit within that to build resilience. Okay, so that's what we have to do. We don't have any other options really, but that makes every sense as well. And even if we don't survive individually, we get washed away in the flood. That's awful. That might be me, it might be you. I hope it and pray that it isn't. But it might not be. So we have to prepare for the eventuality that we might survive, to create the possibility of survival and to create the possibility of supporting the people around us. So this is our strategy. So this breakdown of future trends and threats. This is the thinking of our colleague who shared this diagram with us, and this is how he interpreted it. I don't know, some years ago. Let's start. Where are we going to start? Let's start with the natural world. What future trends and threats might we need to consider from the natural world? Well, it says here, earth, air, water, fire. So it's thought about it in an elemental way, the four basic elements. So I'm just absorbing this a little bit better. Okay, so, well, bushfires, soil erosion, wind, floods, and obviously we could have too much of something or not enough of something. We can manage landscapes carefully to minimize and reduce the fire burden. We can understand that if we're going to have climatic extremes, there might be times when the danger might come from a bushfire, and that's a real and tangible risk, isn't it? Earth, soil erosion, landslides. What we've seen in the west of Uganda, what we've seen in Elgon region, where you have a lot of deforestation that creates an exposure for heavy rainfall to wash away soils and then create landslides. So we can start to put together strategies to minimize our risk of problems that we might group under earth. And again, think about how you might then create a bubble around that and then create subcategories. Is soil erosion is a risk, landslides is a risk, so on and so forth. Air from pollution, noxious gases. Okay, now we think about water, especially within the context of a future threat of climate change. We know that the trend is intensifies weather systems. What's that going to do to our soils? How's that going to affect the air? How's that going to affect water? And the answer is we might have too much of it or we might have not enough. We need to think about strategies that address that. And so we've jumped from function one, which was the food support systems to support food production, and now I've jumped to function 9, which is this is the thinking and planning. This is the part of us that's this is where the brain work is going. Is identifying and spotting future threats. We know that climate change is going to be one of those future threats. How's it going to affect us in terms of the natural world and these 4 areas? Other areas we can think of. Do we want to add layers of detail ourselves? The more we can plan ahead, and that at the very least, the less of a surprise is going to be when these things come about. So things in this earth. What about things from outside? Is there a risk of extraterrestrial life? I don't know what we could do about that. Asteroids and meteors, changes in the sun, changes in cosmic radiation. I guess it's about damage to the ozone layer, affecting the quality of the light and so forth coming into the planet. So I think there's much we can do about these things, but at least we can be aware where future threats might come from. Implications for policy. So if we know that there are long-term threats, let's again focus on climate change. What can we do in terms of prevention, preparedness, response, recovery? There we go. There's our four emergency response stages again. So we can prevent it locally by creating more shade. We can prevent climate change locally by, we looked at our three-dimensional stacked systems last week. The shape of food forest systems that we might adapt, which create more shade and create something that's going to help regulate climate locally. We might want to be thinking about that. And preparedness for extreme events, etc., etc. Understand that. So again, with Roger Hallam's analysis of what we can expect going forward is it's not just going to be the climate systems will stress food growing systems, stress natural systems, but they'll also stress our sociological systems. They'll stress our own relationships with each other. And that's another thing perhaps that we need to think about is, I guess can we see threats to bring us together through common unity? Can we allow use these forces to maybe have communities to accept responsibility? That there's dangers that if things break down, we might see conflict, and what can we do to minimize that risk, or what can we do to I guess reinforce ourselves slightly from those threats? And these are all fairly dark scenarios we're looking at, but where are the threats coming from? And just ask yourself, where do we think that they might come from? And for each one of us, it might be slightly different. And for each one, it might put in place a different kinds of response. So technological changes, how that might affect us. Impact of mining and agriculture, attempts to geoengineer the climate systems. I don't know. I mean, I think if you go back to the sociologicals, I think we might want to think about this in terms of very much in terms of our own communities. Where will the cracks form, and around what ways or strategies can we use these stresses to bring us together to do exactly this? Is to start to problem solve and to bioregionally organize along this established identifiable structure. So our future trends and threats, they might come in different forms. Natural world, technological changes, things that maybe happen beyond our planet, impacts that's going to have on society, and long-term impact that will have on policy and planning. And having these longer-term threats in mind enables us to create policies and to plan for it now. The reminder, principle number 4 of the Holmgren principles, where we talked about the sins of the father are visited unto the 7th generation. How failing to correct problems in the shorter term has long-term impacts, which are much more serious. So we can anticipate and plan now to prevent things being much more challenging at some point in the future. Ali might tune in today. I'm not sure if he's there right now. He posted these pictures on Facebook today. There's the before and after of some individual vetiver slips going in on the edge of a road. And here they are, the established phase. We have this now becoming a vetiver hedge, something that's going to interrupt flow of water, heavy rainfall coming down a slope. It's going to hit the hedge, and some of that water is going to slow down, reduce its erosion, stabilize the roadside edge. That is the implementation of a strategy to build resilience in the system. We're less likely to experience erosion. We've put in, or Ali has put in a system that's going to provide yields, support, have other benefits to the system. So there's a simple example of how to think about how we might layer in different elements and systems into our gardens, into our surroundings. It's going to increase our resilience to these turbocharged energy systems through climate change and the myriad of knock-on effects that that's going to have. So that's my presentation for this week. I've got another thing that I might want to talk about and look at with you, but maybe we could have a little go round and say any thoughts from people, what potential threats are concerning you, and what strategies might you be having, you be working on to help strengthen your own position, something like that. I'd be really interested to hear a few thoughts, because it's fairly challenging material I'm giving you this week, but we're all experiencing it, and here in the UK we're experiencing lots of economic challenges, is because we don't grow our food so much here, we buy it. So when climate change is happening, we experience prices going up in the shops. So we think, oh, it's an economic problem. It's a climate problem, but we're experiencing it in an economic way. And so say these changes are affecting us all in slightly different ways. Gerald, I'll let you just kick off if you've got any thoughts, and then lovely to hear from anyone else.
Thanks, Steve. And yeah, this is a very, timely and vital session. It reminds me during one of my MBA sessions to show one of the modules was operations and major incidents, sort of preparations, to show you that even in government settings or organizational settings, they would encourage you to plan way in advance, or to even go as far as doing simulations. But maybe for us here, or for the group here, we may not have the capability to simulate or to do role play of some of these situations that may happen, because that is at government level. Actually, we realized that for things like even COVID and these other major instances that have been happening, they had kind of simulated them. They were already having emergency response teams on ground, however much it hadn't actually happened. But this is something that they had kind of a window, or had somehow imagined would at some point happen. We may not have the exact kind of precision or the exact amount of resources to be able to simulate that, but maybe there are obvious things that, going by the current trends, are bound to happen. Droughts are bound to happen. Floods are bound to happen. Can we, as part of the resilience approach, or as part of making our systems more resilient, can we now bring in elements that reinforce? It was a good example to see the vetiver hedge from early, but then we can further now is time to split between the day-to-day survive and now reinforce the sort of optimistic, but then we have the ability at least to minimize the impact. Oh, how about we set up systems that give us a certain level of proofing? It may not be to totally eliminate the disasters or the floods or the wind or the extreme temperatures, but let's now start to think in terms of safeguards. We know with temperatures, obviously, the more shades we'll have, the more, the better. So growing trees now becomes a safe. So let's balance between, and also gone into has dropped. Any contributions, Stella? We welcome the master's knowledge here. Disaster preparedness. Caroline, January, any additions, Shanaz? All right.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Yes, January.
Hope that you are hope that you are doing fine, all of you.
Okay.
Was that just a greeting, or were you going to? I mean, we've made reference to the floods that you've experienced there, and obviously we understand the enormity of the challenge. But it sort of prompted us to think, we need these things are going to happen. We need.
So how best do we now ensure, we call it resilient? How do we become now more resilient? How do we try as much as possible to include the aspect of resilience into our programming? Steve has been emphasizing planning. And, in planning is essentially vital throughout all our processes. We used to have a saying that if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. So it's either you're failing to plan and then ending up in chaos and emergencies. Yes, whereas emergencies are sometimes unforeseen, but planning could as well help us to mitigate or minimize the level of chaos turning into, emergencies. So the best, or one of those tools we have at hand, is how best now do we plan. It could be from the simplest format of it. Incorporate specific elements that support the resilience or the proofing, just to minimize the impact of the negative effects or the negative feedback that we are currently getting. Stella, Caroline.
Thank you so much, class. I think I'd also logged in a bit late, so I'd not understood everything, but I've gotten from you right now. When we talk about planning, I think it's one of the best things whenever we think about disaster management, disaster preparedness, and trying to mitigate some of these things. How do we plan? First of all, we do, each of us needs to do risk assessment every day. It is part of our daily life now. We need to do risk assessment per person. Every day when you wake up, what do you think could be a risk? What do you think would make you to be vulnerable to have a certain problem? In your neighborhood, what do you think can easily cause a problem? We should all keep a watch, you know? That alone will help us do the planning every day. Because if you cannot watch what is almost bringing a problem to you, then you cannot know, you cannot even plan for it, you know? For example, if we have, let's say we have a risk of floods, okay? And we are not putting our attention into this risk. Eventually, we fail to plan for it because at the end of the day, the floods will come and find even you've not dug even your swales, you've not done anything to help yourself. So risk assessment is something very important that everyone should do, should look into. And then we would also look at doing a follow-up on, like, let's say, way back, how were the people living before us? The indigenous knowledge is very important because if we don't know how the people of that place used to live, we cannot manage to plan. Let's say, for example, when we talk about the Bududa floods every time, those people used to have bamboo plants there, okay? And that's how they used to mitigate some of these things. Landslides used not to be there in Bududa, but because of the too much consumption of malewa, people encroached on the bamboo. And at the end, these bamboos got depleted. So as a result, we now have these landslides, okay? So these are some of the things we have to look into every day. We have to have a flashback always. That alone can help us plan what are the resources we need so as to have ourselves ready, prepared for a certain thing. And then we also have to look at the occurrences in other places, okay? For example, it must have not happened in our place here, but we have seen certain disasters happening in some other places. It is up to us to keep a watch and say, oh, if we don't plan ahead, such a disaster can happen to us because we're just not thinking of how to help ourselves, okay? So learning from other experiences also would help us plan ahead of the time. Let me give someone else also to add something. Thank you. Yes, Caroline is on. Caroline, go on, dear.
Okay. Yes, Stella, you said something very important about how the indigenous people used to sort out their challenges. One, the indigenous knowledge used to teach us there was nothing like over farming. And again, we didn't have monocropping. The monocropping has come about because of commercial farming. And these are all very new. Let's say like in a place like Africa. Like among the Luo tribe of which I'm a member, we used to grow things like millet, cassava. Those are hardy crops. They stay for long in the soil, and even after harvest, you can keep them for a while. Then another thing was that there were lots of granaries in any Luo homestead. Every wife had their granary, and then there was a granary for the man, the head of the household. So usually the the male granary was a fallback in terms of hunger and all these other calamities. So when people had to go to the head of the household granary, then you'd realize there was danger. You see, and generally, like some of the land degradation that we are currently seeing was not there because people used to responsibly, you know, look for firewood. Not like right now where people are just harvesting trees for timber, for firewood carelessly, you know, because the demand is more than the supply. And then monetarization has made people are so interested in money, profit making, they don't care, you know. So they'll cut off trees just to make that money for now, not realizing that they are harming future generations. They are harming the earth. So those are just some of the things that we need as we are interacting in the community. We need to teach or to remind our people about the way we used to live before so that we can, you know, go back to our roots and do the right thing as is required. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, those are very good points, Caroline, and yeah, we're measuring with the wrong yardstick. If we're measuring our activities with do they make money, it's not giving us the right information. Yeah, thank you, Shanaz. Yes, thank you very much, and a very good contribution as well, Stella. And I know that it's right, talks directly to your studies and things that you're thinking about right now. So I hope this is resonating with that for you. And I think, and it's so important also, Carolyn, to I think permaculture also helps us value and understand that ancestral and traditional knowledge really was wise. It was wisdom, and then in embracing industrial agriculture, we've kind of been told this story that our ancestors weren't, they weren't doing it right. They didn't, we've got this clever new technology and these clever new seeds and these improved chemicals, and it's not been a success. It creates short-term success, but it's created long-term problems. And to go back to the climate problem and everything else is, yes, Shanaza, you absolutely nailed it. Exactly the point is we have to keep investing in the system so it grows, not extracting what we can as a profit at the cost of the system. And on a big scale, that's how we've caused the climate problem. That's everyone in the world, or all the many billions of people doing the wrong things, has literally caused now a very big impact. And the only way we're going to solve it is by literally us empowering, and I'm talking about in the next 3 or 4 years as well, not some distant thing. It's the actions of now that's going to create the future. And I mean, going back to the information that I've been studying this week about the urgency of the climate crisis is we need to understand what we do now is absolutely critical. So how we behave with our own support systems within our own community that sends a message out into the world, a resonance. And isn't this interesting that here we are collaborating across many thousands of miles and different time zones, and translating these ideas and thinking about how we will, use them in our own communities, and to send out, hopefully, that resonance, that positive message. Yeah. Okay. And anyone else like to contribute on that, or I can bring another element into our discussion slightly. So I'm going to use this opportunity now to look at something that I'm working on, and just to share with you a little bit of this thought, which is what I've been thinking about this last few days is so we talked about today about bottom-up solutions, bottom-up strategies. So how we as individuals and communities organize ourselves literally from the grassroots to support our needs. But there are also organizations, charities, structures out there which also that exist to support us. So there's the bottom up, and then there's the top down. And so in a very small way, so in the UK, to support the function of permaculture education, there is a charity, educational charity, called the Permaculture Association. It's permaculture.org.uk, sorry, permaculture.org.uk. So that's the Permaculture Association. It's an educational charity. It exists to support the function of people learning about permaculture, sharing their knowledge and experience, joining networks, accessing courses, developing people to become teachers, all of those things. Those are all the kind of the functions of the Permaculture Association. And it's also trying to take a long-term view of how might we develop permaculture in this country, how might we obviously draw people into the network, how might we learn from the collective experience of what's going on, and how can we collate that knowledge and also share it with other people. Okay, so that's the function of the Permaculture Association of Britain. And I can say I know a bit about them, as in I used to work for them from about from 1996 to 1999. So 24 years ago, so a long time. But I've been a member since then, and I helped them in an early stage of their development, and I used to edit the newsletter and do the website and stuff like that. And in 1999, I convened their conference. So all these years later, Permaculture Association report that although they exist to support permaculture education in Britain, they increasingly are getting lots and lots of inquiries, emails and contacts from people in the majority world and the wider world. And that's because there isn't a permaculture association for, I don't know, Kenya or Uganda, yet, or many other countries they're hearing from. Now, they've said, really, we're getting all of these messages and questions, but we're not resourced to answer them. And actually, our job, our remit as the Permaculture Association of Britain is to focus on permaculture in Britain. But they've then gone on to say, actually, we do also recognise that we've been going all these years, 25, 30 years, and we're now one of the more established permaculture networks in the world. And it's only right, really, that we can offer some of our experience and knowledge and overview to especially people coming from the majority world, from the non-Western world. So to that extent, they've managed to raise some money for investment to create a part-time job, and to create a job for 3 years for someone to coordinate that educational function of the association, but internationally. I saw this job advert a few weeks ago, and I thought, hey, I might like to apply for that job. And I thought, I have a lot of experience in permaculture, and I do all of this work with you guys at East Africa. I might be able to bring something to this role. So I applied. And I was then told, since a lot of people applied for this job, 107, I'm told. And they've narrowed it down, they've gone through all these applications, and they've created a shortlist for interview. That interview is tomorrow, and I am on that shortlist. So we'll see. I don't know whether I will go forward. It's very competitive, so it's quite possible that I might not. But anyway, I thought I would share this with you because it is important, and whether I get the job or not is what's important for us to know is that this role is being created, and we might want to think about how, what support might there be out there for us, and what kind of, what's the nature of the support that we think we need. And you might say money, and I'm going to say to that is Permaculture Association isn't a funder. It's someone who might help you organize yourself so that you might ask for money, but they're not going to be the people to give you the money. In the same way, it's not going to be me to give you the money for your project. We can help you organize to think about how you might go about getting your resources. Okay. Okay, Nicholas is leaving, and thanks, Caroline. Yes, well, yes, no, it is. I'm happy to even get to that stage, to be honest, and it is, and I'm going to try and bring my what I can to it tomorrow. Yeah, well, I'd be delighted to get it. Like, honestly, if I can get this, if I do win this role, it will change all of our lives. It will bring us close into the network and hopefully bring us some resources. So they've asked me some questions to prepare some questions, and I've only allowed to have 8 minutes to answer them. So, and this is a little presentation that I've put together to answer the questions. So their first question is, they get a lot of replies, a lot of international inquiries, and they give me an example of 3 of the types of inquiries that they get, and they want to know how I would reply to that. And I guess my sort of warm up is actually as Sector 39, we've been engaging with many people internationally, especially since 2016, and was also had many requests. And so what we've done, the strategy so far that I have followed is through all of these many requests is identify the key people. Who are the people who are going to be change makers, who are going to make a difference, and can we network with them, and can we make really basic resources available to those people to remove barriers, to remove obstacles. So help people with data costs, or help people with, really make sure that they can hook into the network. So that's what I've been doing. they give me 3 examples of questions that they get asked all the time. So here's one from Nepal, and there's one from Niger, and there's one from Zimbabwe. And I thought, well, I know a little about Nepal, and permaculture in Nepal is established. There's all sorts of networks. This is a project in a place called Pokhara, where there is quite a lot of tourism. And when I was trying to think about how could I actually help those people? They've asked for some support. They have a vision. I was thinking they need to be aware of other local permaculture projects. They need to know about permaculture networks in Nepal. Let's make sure that they are aware of that. And let's also help try and tell their story and share what they're doing and put that out there. Because a lot of tourists go to Pokhara, they know and know it, and there could be many opportunities around there for them. So can we connect people to wider networks, I guess? Second request is from Niger, and actually I spotted this. I think a copy of this actually came to us last year, and Niger is complicated. I mean, again, what would be the answer to say, how can I help these people in this very difficult place, challenging place? And the truth is, they need to come up with a large-scale strategy to deal with increasing desertification and to deal with nomadic farmers being pushed into settled areas, creating conflict and friction with 2 different groups of people coming together. It's going to need a large-scale intervention. So to achieve that, you need to have a sort of unified response. But the other side of that is you could create something which could, almost be globally inspirational. So let's think about if you could do something that's big and ambitious and in a very challenging place, that in itself might be how we get noticed and link it into networks. So I started to think about how I might reply to that and make them feel, not to raise people's hope falsely, but what are the steps? What can remove the obstacles, and what are the steps that are going to push them in the right direction? Third question came from Zimbabwe, from the Ubuntu movement, where there's some really pioneering things going on in Zimbabwe. I spent some time there myself, 25 years ago now, but I've stayed in touch, and we've done some training with some Zimbabwean people since then. So any project that's going on there, again, same answer really. They need to be networked locally. They need to have a chance to tell their story kind of globally, and help us understand the opportunities and challenges that are there in Zimbabwe right now. I noticed that this initiative is part of a Ubuntu network, which actually has a head office in Switzerland. So I tried reaching out to them and seeing what they knew and how we might be able to support each other. There's all these different international permaculture groups that are forming. I want to develop my awareness of those and see how individual projects might link in and benefit from being part of these international networks. So the other question they've asked me about is what kind of, how would we build this network? Clearly we need to have a kind of international network that links people and organizations around the world who are doing or want to do permaculture. So what things could we create that would help you, that would help connect you to this and to feel that you can benefit from that? Hi Andre, nice to have you back. So that was the part 2 of the question, and I thought, well, I thought about what we're currently doing, which is we meet people and track people through social media. And when I see someone, say like Andre or like January, who I can see they've got drive, worth connecting to, and what technologies are we using was the question. So we're using social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, Signal, Zoom, and we're building blogs and websites with WordPress, because these are cheap, easy, accessible ways in which we can track and measure progress and build links between people. I think with more resources, I'd want to build a database that really logs all of this experience. And what I've come around to thinking, and tell me what you think, is this kind of session that we're having now is that could become, let's say, a monthly international forum. We could focus on and profile individual projects, maybe one at a time, or depending on how much is going on. But let's just think about is how we need to grow our permaculture network fast. It needs to be able to grow, and it needs to be able to support and empower a great many people, all around the world as we face these challenges and we are forced to respond to them. So we need to have regular dialogue. We need to have awareness raising of projects and ambitions. We need to have much more feedback, understand problems and frictions that people are experiencing. I think we have to link pioneering people together, just like we are really doing through this session. So how can we build on that? How could we link then that? And I think the more we achieve that, the more we can maybe access sponsors, donors, and contributors. So there you go. That's my first run through of my answer, and I've done that a bit quickly. But I don't know how can you imagine that the UK Permaculture Association could usefully help or support you? There's my question to you.
Peer-to-peer learning, Permaculture Academy. Setting up sort of a global Permaculture Academy. So I'm thinking having the peer-to-peer learning at a global level, and then also, just as we put it in the setup for the Permaculture Academy, allowing for authentication and sort of building people's putting together, let's say, people's profile, one, for purposes of them interacting with peers within the permaculture setting, from rather, because if I look at Caroline's profile, then I know that I'm interacting with Caroline, who is experienced or who is having hands-on experience in such and such a field, but also at maybe a project kind of level, it helps that should anyone looking to support communities, they would easily be able to run through the profiles and know, oh, Caroline is located within the specific community that I'm planning to work with. So sort of it's both a tool to empower the practitioners within our network, but then also sort of a market, let's call it simply a marketing tool, or a tool to put them out there, increase their chances of genuinely accessing funding and other relevant opportunities for them to proceed.
Is that your hand up again, Caroline? Please do go ahead.
Yes. In a nutshell, what Gerald is saying, we will be able to network effectively. Yeah. And, positively and progressively. That is very, very necessary. Thank you.
did you get the question, Andre? And I'd be very interested to hear any thoughts. How
Yes,
what
yes.
help what help out there would assist you that could be offered by the Permaculture Association in Britain?
Okay. Let me talk some what I think, but I didn't understand the question. If it is possible, you can repeat so that I can be able to answer for the question. But I was somewhere. My neighbors,
Yes.
yeah, a child is died right now, so I was going to visit them,
Yeah.
and I back.
Okay. I'm very sorry for the loss. Yeah. So the question is, the UK in Britain there is a charity called the Permaculture Association, and their
Yeah,
job is to support permaculture education in Britain, and they're quite established now. And what they have said is they're now starting to get lots of questions from especially East Africa, but from around the world. And what they said is it's not really their responsibility. Then it's not their job to answer those questions because they exist for Britain. That's the purpose of the charity. But they've managed to raise some resources, some money, so that they can create a job so that someone can now begin to have a responsibility of supporting people internationally. I am applying for that job. And the question that they want me to answer is what support would say someone like you be looking for from an organization such as that? Does that make sense?
yes, yeah. What I can say on that, as we are in the group and we have our goal, we have ideas that we are sharing in the group, and every organization has their ideas and vision. So to get funds or support for the organization, it depends on the work that you are working. And my suggestion on it is there's like in our organization, my organization here in Kakuma, we are looking for people who can support the group, and we do our activity because we for now we are contributing money for membership, and we just buying some seeds, some items of our group. So you can't go ahead with your organization without being supported with someone. And on that, if it could be better for us to organize a Facebook group or a Facebook page and website so that we can see in which way we can get funds to support each organization in that group, because we have, as in Kenya, Kakuma, with some of us they are in Uganda, and maybe there are others they are outside Kenya. So that is my suggestion, if it is possible. But any organization can't be they can't go ahead without being supported. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. There's some very good points there. And I think, yes, making information available in certain key places, Facebook groups, and also I'm saying WordPress blogs like the Academy website. And you could tell me if that is, I know that it's easiest for you guys to access things on Facebook because of the way that your bundles are configured, and it's different for different apps. Different applications work in different contexts or different groups. So I'm trying to understand that as well. but I hope that you are able to access the Academy website and that working on for you, because that's something I think I want to develop that as a communication tool for the network.
Yeah, we can do like, you know, I have
Oh, again, no. Hmm. Oh, was that? I wasn't sure if that was me had frozen or if it was January. Oh no, it was, sorry, Andre.
It's Andre, we've actually lost him.
Okay, all right, okay. And any closing thoughts? We've got just a few minutes left. Thank you for your thoughts on that. It's actually and your encouragement. And whatever happens, I'm trying to be philosophical. As if someone else gets it, then that means that there's someone else in that position who we can, you know, approach and work with. I hope it is me though, because yeah, I think I could really contribute with that. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that. Any closing thoughts? We'll have a little go around. If anyone wants to say anything, or anything at all, or any questions, or just your own summary or thoughts.
Oh, Karen, please go on.
Okay. I'm happy to be back. You know, I followed the last two sessions on YouTube, and it was quite frustrating. Sometimes I wanted to comment and I couldn't. But today, I've really enjoyed the class as always, and I'm thanking everybody who's had the time to be able to come to class. This particular initiative uh, has been a very good one because it has reached many people like myself who may not have had a chance to learn from the master himself. I'm thankful and I'm grateful for the interaction. Thank you all.
Thanks, Caroline. Oh, okay. Yes, Shinas, you're welcome. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name right.
Hi. I'm sorry that I don't always make it to class, but I do catch up all the lectures on YouTube. And also, I'd like to say, listening to all your experiences from Africa makes me feel, in a way, I live in an urban setting, and I know we must apply the principles to every area, whatever lives we lead, as far as possible. And so that is what I've been trying to do. And I've been interested in permaculture for a long time, from when my hair was black, not white, but actually didn't sort of actively participate. And I've come to it very late, and I helped to raise some money so more people could participate from Africa, because I feel very strongly about it. And I'm sorry if I keep quiet and I don't contribute, but I do listen. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Gerard, as well, and Steve, of course, and to wish him every luck tomorrow. We really wish that you will get this this position, but you always have a philosophical approach, and let's see what the universe provides. So thank you again. Thank you to Stella, to Caroline, to Deborah, to Andre, and to everybody who always are part of the class. And I'll try and be a part of the live class because it does make a big difference. So thank you.
Thanks, Shinaz. Over to you, Steve. It couldn't end at a better note than that. Unless anyone else has any other thoughts, but all the best, and yeah, you're the best man for the position.
Okay.
So,
thank
yes.
you. Really nice to have your contribution, Shanaz. We welcome that tremendously. And yes, it's good to have the live sessions and to be there for the live session. And I'm going to be preparing and putting out, less material each time now for our final sessions, and really want us to feed back from our own experiences and to collate that. And actually, we'll see what happens, but we're also going to make our plans about how we're going to proceed forward as an Academy of Permaculture, how we're going to better support each other, share each other's knowledge, and use that to accelerate, to work towards our goal. And Sector 39's goal is to bring permaculture to new areas, to accelerate learning, and to create a mechanism for people to feed back and share their experience. And we're doing it, guys, it's happening. So I'll take your well wishes and the momentum from these sessions, and I shall try and bring it all to life tomorrow in my interview. And we shall see. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this, and I'll see you all next week, if not before. So
Good luck, Steve. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Yeah. Night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Love you all. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.